The Powers Project.
Hey, Zeenat, how are you doing today, young lady?
Very well, thank you. A bit chilly all the way from the UK, but I'm doing wonderfully.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah, over
And
there.
how are you
I'm doing
in sunny
great.
Florida?
Yeah, it's always sunny. It never changes. It's like
Oh.
Groundhog Day. That's what it's like every day you wake up and there's the sun.
And it's what, do you know what? I completely understand because I grew up in the Middle East in Dubai, so till I was about 18, 19. So I know about the heat.
Wow, how was that? I guess that back then it must have been like all desert.
Oh gosh, yes. It's a completely different world now. It was just, yeah, you could actually count the houses and
Oh,
hold them in your
really?
hand. There were no street signs. You would just kind of go to get to my house. You just go past four palm trees, then you'll see a rock on the left. Turn right at that rock, and then you'll see this Bedouin tent, and you turn left.
Bedouin tent. Yeah, it's certainly, I mean, I haven't been there, but the pictures I've seen, it looks like it's changed quite a bit since those
It
days.
has indeed. Yeah, it has.
Yeah, so you know a little bit about the heat and the sun, so obviously. So, y- you are a mental health coach and a well-being coach, and you help people to get into the right mindset and things like that. So, rather than me butcher it, why don't I have you talk about what it is you do exactly and how you help people?
Okay. So, in essence, I'm a qualified performance life coach, but my main focus and niche area is well-being and mental health, and that's all due to a lot of it from my own experiences of what I've encountered in my life. That's why I've honed in and niched in that area because thinking about my past careers and growing up, I've I felt that the things that I've learned now as a life coach, I wish I'd known back then. And I saw the fundamentals and the vital key points of how they can impact your mental health and well-being. So, what I do is I address people's mindset, and in essence, it's about going back to looking at their belief systems, their values, their self worth, and really find out and for them to find out and explore who they really are. And once they really know who they are, and along that process, I give them the tools and strategies and all these techniques to help them continue their journey forward so that they can live the life that they desire and they want and achieve the goals that they set in their lives. Because a lot of the time, when we find ourselves with challenges, it may be that we're not in the right mindset, but what does that mean? And it's for me to help my clients understand what that actually means.
So, you make a good point there because I don't think people understand that how much being in a job that you don't like, how much that affects you mentally. And so
Mm.
by not doing something that you love, it puts this undue stress on you and this mental stress that you deal with. And then we see it today. We see how people are so of course we have the pandemic that's been going on for the past 2 years.
Mm.
So there's been even this the more added stress to them, and it seems like they don't understand how to get rid of it because they don't know what's causing it and they don't realize it's their own life. So how do you get them to see the bigger picture and go, hey, yeah, you had this stress, but this is why you're having this stress?
Yeah. Well, fundamentally, first of all, I think to address any setbacks in life, you have to have the ability and the skill to just actually stop, take a breath, step back, and reflect. And I ask my clients how often they do that. And as you know, in the busy life that we all live in now, and it just gets faster and faster, we forget those simple things, and they are simple things, and they're very easy to do. And it doesn't mean you have to be doing it a long time. So for me, it's about getting them to step back. Okay. The next thing is they have to be ready to make that change. Now, if they're not ready, then that's not going to happen. And they have to be ready to step out their comfort zone and face their fears, face things that they may have forgotten or have never tried. So until they're ready to do that, it's very difficult to help anyone through. It's almost like, when somebody tells you have to do this and you think, I don't have to do anything, or somebody says no and you go and do the opposite. But there's a way of kind of maneuvering around that to get people to realize. And, what I do is I pose a lot of questions, the what if questions, or imagine if, or what would your life be like if you had X, Y, and Z?
I wonder, you just said something that jogged something in my mind, and I thought, when we were kids, we would just dare each other. I dare you to do this. I wonder
Mm.
if as adults, if we would operate on that same level, where if I go, I dare you to do this, instead of saying what, instead of getting them to think about it logically, because like you said, if they're not ready for change, you
Mm.
can't make them. As they say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
you can show, if these people aren't ready for change, as you said, you can show them everything, and it's just not going to happen until they're ready. So the key is to get them ready to change to where they want to. And we all know, human beings are not exactly open to change very often.
No, not very often. And also, I think it's also making them understand that when it comes to your mental health or well-being, or actually not just that, but quite a lot of things, that it's a long life journey. There is no end product. You're not going into a store and buying a brand new pair of summer shorts or a summer dress or winter coat, whatever it may be, because there you have that final product. You keep looking and looking and you try it on. With When it comes to personal development and your mind, you're constantly trying and changing new tools in different environments, different situations, because it could be that you've been given a tool for a particular situation and it works perfectly. Then you encounter another challenge and it may be you try that tool with that. And that's the idea. And if it doesn't work, you can't, some often people go, oh God, well, I haven't got a tool that works for it, and it sets them back again. But what it is then exploring what other tools will work, because maybe that tool will work for something else along your journey. So it's all about collecting a lovely toolbox of a variety of tools, from spanners, saws, whatever you want to do. It sounds a bit odd, but you know what I mean. Or
Right.
a sewing box with
Right.
lovely bright colours of threads.
Well, do you think that, when people, when they find change, and like you lead them down, to show them, here's what the possibilities are. Where do you want to go with this? And you lead them with the tools that you have,
Mm,
and they find what they want. And then a little bit down the road, now they're not as happy as they were, because I think, and correct me if you think differently. I think that, like you said, we're always progressing. We're
mm,
always progressing as humans, and so we're not going to, where we might be happy today, we may not be happy a year from now. So that tells me I need more change, and so I need to step back, like you said, step back and look. Okay, well, where do I want to go now? What do I want to do now? Do you
yeah.
help people get to that point as well? Do you help them to see that this is a journey for the rest of their life? It's not just one destination.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple of clients where they're ongoing. They may have come initially for quite a lot of sessions, but then we just have touch-based sessions with them. They might come once every 6 months, or once every 3 months, or once a year. So I'm always there to provide insight to their thinking, their emotions, their thoughts, their behaviors. It's a bit like, I know we had a conversation before we met to do this,
Right.
and we talked about having our own coaches, and it's about that same thing. Yourself and myself, we're on a journey as well as coaches or as therapists, or even as, if we're just presenters. We need external professional support as well to push
Absolutely.
us through those challenges and boundaries, because especially with me, I know I'm very much an empath, so I absorb a lot of my clients' energy. So I need a release button or a release valve.
Yeah, and I think, and you're right. We did talk about that. And I think, I also said something to the effect like when we think of people who are, and I don't like this title, but self-help gurus, for instance,
Mm,
at the top of that is probably Tony Robbins, and everybody thinks Tony Robbins, is the best, and he probably is. But the thing is, Tony Robbins has his own coaches. Tony Robbins
yeah.
has his bad days like the rest of us, and it comes down to how does Tony, how does he look at those days? What does he do? How does he handle them?
Mm,
Just like with us, how do we handle the bad days when they come? Because
yeah.
everyone has them. Everyone has those challenging days where you just don't want to get out of bed and you go, okay, so how am I going to take on this day? And how am I going to look at things? And I think that's where people
Absolutely.
think that, when they think you have all the answers, and they think that every day is just like, rainbows and flowers. And it's like,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's 2 points to that that I'd like to kind of
yes, please do.
build on. One of them is, I used to be a primary teacher. I supply teach now, and it's funny how children think that teachers are perfect. They don't do anything wrong, and we're not perfect. We do make mistakes. We are human as well, and it's so important, I think, to educate people with that. And I think we can start to tell children that, but they think that because that's the experience of what they've maybe been told. But also, adults sometimes see that. I know I've come across parents who will say, "Well, you're a teacher, you should know all this." There is no should. It's like we all make mistakes at some point. We're only human. Um, so it's about that education. And then the other thing you were saying about us handling our own. I mean, I'd love to ask Tony Robbins how he manages. I would love an interview with him at some point. Wouldn't it be great?
Yes.
But the other day is a very simple day. This week, actually, on Wednesday. Now, my tire went. It blew when I was coming back from one of the schools I was working at, and I have never had a flat tire in my life. And
Wow.
I've been driving for over 20, 25 years. Okay, so I'm not saying my age, though I don't mind it. so, and initially, I was just this because I had to get back for a podcast recording. I had 2 clients I had to coach, and I was getting really, really uptight. But then I sort of sat back after taking a bit of a huff and puff. I sat back and I went, okay, focus. What am I in control of? What tools do I have to manage my emotions so I don't end up stressed? I don't end up having a headache and my whole neck tensing up because I have a neck injury, you know. And I pulled all those out in the bag, and I was sat there for 4 hours before I got home. But I had tools in my toolbox, in my back pocket. Put if we took that back maybe 15, 20 years ago, oh my God, that would have been a different me completely.
Right.
I would have been screaming, shouting, I would have been furious, I would have taken it out on somebody. But actually, it's nobody's fault at all. It's not even my fault.
Right.
But I was able to control how I wanted the rest of my evening to turn out.
And I think I think that you make another good point here. It took time for you to get there. It doesn't happen overnight. I was very much the same way where, 15 years ago, things that would set me off, I just look at it now and go, no big deal. But 15 years ago or 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, I've grown a lot, but it's because I've worked at it.
Yeah.
It's like these things are simple that we can do, but simple is very seldom easy. And so it takes time to work these things. And so, like learning to act instead of react, which is what
Yeah.
you did. You took your time, you said, okay, the huff and puff, it said, okay, what can I do? What am I in control of? And when we have these tools, and many people have tools and they don't use them.
Realize it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they don't realize it or they just don't use them. And I go, because I've been guilty of that. I have a friend who's a
Mm.
psychologist, and I said, "We're both hypnotherapists." And
Mhm.
I said, "We know the power of hypnosis." And I go, "Why don't we use it
Yeah.
more?" And we just laugh because it's like we have this wonderful tool at our access, and we don't use it on ourselves as much as we should.
Yeah.
So I look at it like this. People always said knowledge is power, and I said no, knowledge is not
No.
power. Applied knowledge is power, because if you have
Mm.
knowledge and you don't put it to use, it doesn't matter.
What's the point?
Exactly. And it's the same way with the tools. If you learn these tools like that you teach people, okay, people, now it's time for you to start,
Put it in practice.
put it in practice. And guess what? You're not going to be perfect. Just keep doing it, and you'll get better and better. And hopefully you'll learn faster than I did. So
Yeah, and you know what? As you said, change. It's all about embracing change with an open mind, an open heart, and letting things be as it is in that moment. Because sometimes things are meant to be that way, and then from there, change begins to happen.
okay, so it's funny that you said that, because one of my questions for you is, how do you get people to, and I used that exact word, how do you get people to embrace change?
How do I get them? I get a hammer and knock it over their head.
Whatever works.
Whatever works. No, 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 seriously. I think for me, the way I get people to embrace change is I talk about my own experiences, how I've embraced change, um, and not make it sound as if it's come out of a textbook. I send them testimonials of other people who have embraced change, so they know that there's these possibilities. And then, like I said earlier on, it's about getting them to realize what their life looks like now and what their life could look like if they embrace change. So the whole visualization aspect of things, visualize what you want, why you want it, your purpose. And then with that, what I do is I really start to dive deep into questioning every single thought they have to make sure it's what they want and
Right.
that they're able to embrace that change and that they're ready for it. And to let them know that I'm there to hold their hand in the beginning, to hold them accountable, to help them through that change, to embrace it, even with the fallbacks and the rewards and the successes. But then slowly, it's about letting those reins go because they have to take ownership of their life. Because you can't embrace the life you want unless you own it.
Right. Yeah, you could want it for them all you want, and
Yeah.
if they don't want it, it's not going to happen. But I like that you use visualization, because that's what I've used over the years as well. In fact, because I've been
Hypnosis.
a personal trainer most of my life, one of the
Mm,
things I've used in the past for people who said, "Oh, I hate running. I hate running." I said, "Okay." So I would get them to visualize. I'd have them sit down, close their eyes, and I'd have them visualize being in a wheelchair and not be able to use their legs. And
yes.
imagine what it's like to be able to be stuck in a wheelchair for the rest of your life, never be able to use your legs. You can see this, like the stress on their face when they
Mm,
can't move their legs, and all of a sudden they realize what a blessing it is to be able to
yeah.
walk, to be able to run, to be able to, to do those things that they never thought about, because they take it for granted. And that's what happens with a lot of us, I think, is that we take things for granted. And when you use
Absolutely. Yeah.
visualization like you do, it brings it home to them.
Mm. Uh, you know, the other question, I don't know about you if you've had this when you're with your clients, especially when you're doing visualization and hypnosis. Sometimes I'll get clients who say, I can't visualize because they don't have that kinesthetic creative.
Mhm.
Not that they don't have it, it's not just one of their strengths because
Right.
everybody has all of those. It's just you have a preference of where you're stronger. So often, what I do is I said, okay, if you can't visualize it, what does it feel like? So start bringing in the motions. I also start bringing on words. Okay, let's write it down or draw a picture, whatever it is, a line to represent that journey as well, if they just can't imagine that. So
Right.
that works very well for me, because I do know some people say, I just can't imagine it. I can't. Because obviously, again, they've got a block of something that's not allowing them to.
Right. I think
So rather than stressing about that, I allow them other ways to kind of get to that.
I think on top of visualization, using those tools makes it even more powerful and more real
Mm.
for them. So that's, yeah, that's great. I mean, what other tools do you use? I know that you use hypnosis. I know that you use NLP. And if you would explain what neurolinguistics is to people who don't know. There's some other tools that you use. What do you? I mean, I know you have a bunch of them. So what are the things that you use to help people get to where they want to be?
Yeah. So the reason why I have so many, so I suppose, tools or techniques or therapies is because I know from my own experience we are all unique and different, and we respond and react to different things differently. And when I went through my own well-being and mental health challenges and burnout, I had to seek different tools in order to get where I wanted to get, because one type of therapy was not working for me. And it was that journey that led me to all these different tools. So NLP, was neuro linguistic programming, was one of the first tools that I used, and I use it so much for so many things within my coaching. And it's things like anchoring happy thoughts. So you take them through a process, and there could be a trigger point where you anchor those thoughts. So, for example, if you have a fear of going in crowded places or trains, for example, I've anchored it because that kind of causes me anxiety a little bit, or it did then a lot. And then, for example, I would just trigger it by pressing on that pressure point where I've anchored it, just like an anchor of a boat. And then it just fires these good feelings that I've put around that, to then not feel those anxieties and that overwhelm of having to go in the train. So that's one. I've done things like the Disney Project, help people with their career path through NLP, taking them through a process. It's the creative process in different stations of life so that they can get clarity on their business goals. So it's not just therapy as in the mindset, but it's also achieving those business goals, which everything's related. Well, your mind's related to everything you do.
Right.
So that's what I do in terms of NLP and how I help some of my clients. Um, Others I've helped with, which is it's called the Swish Technique. I don't know if you've heard of that, and it's really bizarre. It took me a while to get used to. It's kind of this swish, swish, swish kind of do it. It sounds really, but when somebody's like got a fear or they're suddenly got a panic attack, you suddenly go through a process, and it's almost like you're confusing their
Okay.
thoughts,
It's
a bit like
it's
EDMR kind of
right.
thing.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say,
Um,
it sounds like a confusion technique.
Yeah. So it's the confusion technique. So there's so many different names, but if we know so many of these tools cross over with other therapies and techniques as well. Yeah. So I mean, another one that I use is EFT, which is emotional freedom tapping. Now that is wonderful for children. It's wonderful for anybody, but for children, it's absolutely wonderful, and young children. And it's based on literally just tapping in various pressure points. They're the Chinese meridian points that are there that help you to release the negative energy. So, what you do is you kind of hone in what the negative thoughts and feelings and emotions are around it, and then you replace it with the positive, or how you would rather feel, sorry, and be. A bit like hypnosis in a way, some of the hypnosis techniques.
Right. Yeah, I've never tried EFT. I mean, I've read up on it a little bit years ago, and I don't know. I guess I never found anyone who did it. That's why I never followed through with it. So, but
Yeah.
it seemed interesting to me.
It's relatively new, and actually you'd be surprised how many people are actually kind of doing a bit of EFT without even realizing. So if you think about how many of us would probably sit there and just kind of go like this, just pressing on that point
Yeah.
and just doing that, and that there on the collarbone is a pressure point. I love this part. This is really one of my favorites when I tap here. Other Sometimes we sit there and we do this, and we're thinking, or we're pressing. This is actually a pressure point. and it helps us thoughts.
So it's because I don't think it's the same thing, but you notice how girls will often take their hair and they'll do something like this. And
Yeah.
it's, and I go, that's a comforting motion, but I don't think that's EFT, is it? I mean, I know you can probably feel something, when you pull your hair or something, but do you think that's EFT as well, or do you think that's just a
I wouldn't say
habit?
that's EFT, but I would say, and I'm doing it now. It's it's a soothing sensation of calming. I mean, if you think about, I mean, I don't know what you like, but if you like your head
That's
massage,
what
I mean,
happened.
every time somebody touches my head and does that, I get all. It's calming, and over here is a pressure point as well. I mean, think about when you're feeling a bit sort of when you're feeling anxious or sad, and you stroke a pet. So the hair thing, stroking a pet, and I actually spoke about this on my radio show today, Mindset Matters, that I run every Friday, and we're talking about how therapeutic it is to actually stroke pets. Their fur is a calming sensation because of the endorphins and the happy hormones that start to trigger off.
Right. Well, that's what I do now because I did this with
You
my
wear a wig
I did
and you
this with
kind
my hair till it came out, so now I had to buy a pet and pet it now.
of, well, you could always do the beard.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I do that sometimes. But with my cat, I have a cat, and now he likes to like jump up here and he likes to put his claws in my shoulders. I'm petting him, and I'm like, so,
Oh, that's beautiful. I did see him when we had our last conversation in the background against the wall,
oh,
black.
did he? Yeah, he think well he does. He owns the house. At least he runs it. So
Of course, all cats do. They're the king. They're a, king or queen of the kingdom.
right, exactly. Um, what was the next question I wanted to ask you?
I know we've gone off track, haven't we?
Oh, pets. Like, yeah. So there are other ways for people to handle like the stress and stuff, and I don't think people think outside of them and realize that there are other things like there are pets. Pets do make your life you know better where you don't have this pet owners don't have the stress that others have because they can do those things. There's
Yes,
especially like if you have a dog who just like jumps up and down and so happy when you come home and stuff like that.
I
That
know.
it's gotta you've got to feel that, so it makes you
Yeah,
feel
you can't not feel that.
right.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So
And there's so many health benefits to that. I mean, okay, yes, having a pet can be expensive, but if you can't have a pet, maybe ask your neighbors, someone if you can take your dog for a walk. Taking the dogs for a walk, fresh air, being mindful of what's out there. It's just absolutely wonderful. I mean, I do see people take their dogs for the walk and they're actually on their phones. And for me, I would say take this moment, put your phone in your pocket, and just enjoy your time outside. Listen to what's going on. Enjoy the walk with your dog. Watch your dog, what they do. And, it can be so intriguing
right, exactly.
and relaxing.
And like you said, if you can't afford a pet, there's other things you can do. And I'm going to tell you, I learned this when I was young, and I'm glad I did. But I don't think I'm ever happier than when I'm in the service of other people. And one of the things I was able to do because of a group of young people that I hung around, we would go and
Mm,
visit like the elderly homes, the senior citizen homes,
yeah,
and you would have the most amazing conversations with these people. And they because to me I love history, and so to listen to people who lived through history that you've read about, and
absolutely.
just and I go, if people would just think about others, they would get so much pleasure from that themselves
Mm,
and so much joy. That's why you really do it. You
yeah,
go talk to these people because it makes you feel good. It's like,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
and now you're not lonely. Now you're not you don't have to worry about just being at home alone all the time.
Yeah. And you know what, on that, that's absolutely wonderful because to add to that, it brings along gratitude as well. An understanding of how lucky we are, how world has changed, and that also, that at some point we're going to be old as well, and to understand what it feels like and what we would want when we're older.
Right. Just, I mean, they appreciate so much. Like I remember going, like
Yeah.
once a month, and there was this older man, and he, and I would go around, like we would all go around to all the different rooms and stuff, but he would want to sit down and play a game of chess. And I loved playing it. I mean, he was just so much fun. Like he was always
Amazing.
laughing whenever we were playing chess and stuff. And you couldn't leave that place without feeling like just feeling so good because of the energy that was there. And I don't think people they've gotten away from that, or they never knew it. And I think that if they, they
It's forgotten, I think. I don't know about it in the States, but here it doesn't happen as much now. But I remember in schools, we used to get elderly people coming into schools and talking to children about their life, their history, their experiences, and that was wonderful. I mean, not only that, I one of my neighbours, unfortunately, he's passed away, but he's, gosh, I've known him. Well, I knew him for 40 years. His wife is still there, so over 40 years. We've known them, and we used to go around, and he would talk about his life in the army, on the ship, the war, how he fell in love, how he would get on a bicycle and pedal miles and miles, something like a 3-4 hour pedaling journey to come and see the love of his life. Just all of this, and just listening to those stories and the love between them, um, and also what they went through, made me have hope as well, and better understanding. I mean, classic case was this pandemic. I mean, the wife was saying to me, I said, how are you doing? Is there anything I can get you? She goes, oh, I'm fine. I've been through worse, bombs falling on me, and didn't know whether I was going to be alive in the morning. She goes, pandemic. She had a completely different outlook. It didn't bother her one bit. And she said, she taught me some lovely things and said some great things that allowed me to reflect as well.
well, and you make another great point, because you even talk about this, like people's perspectives on things, as
Mm.
as far as, is this the worst thing that's ever happened to me? And for some people, maybe it is, but it's like, but you're going to make it through this. And when you do, you're going to be like that old woman one day where you go, this is nothing. You should have been there when because there's something to be said about going through life and dealing with these things, because it makes you stronger, and
It
to
does.
where all of a sudden things don't bother you as much, because you go, I've dealt with far worse than that, and it builds character.
It does. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that I do a lot with my clients. And I think of a time where you did X, Y, Z and you used that strength, because if you got that, you can use it again. Just because you used it then doesn't mean it's done and dusted. So that's a very good point. Use those strengths that you have.
Right.
It's not just one time use.
Yeah. Exactly. I want to talk a little bit about money, because for a lot of people, when they think about self help, they're like, how do I make riches? And I see too often, which I'm sure you see too, I see people who think that money is going to solve their problems, all their problems, as if they're all of a sudden everything's going to change if they have money. And I learned a long time ago as well that money, doesn't make you a good person or a bad person. It just shows more of which one you are. If you're a good person, money will make you a really good person. If you're a bad person, it's going to make you a really bad person. You just, it doesn't change who you are. It exacerbates who you are, I guess, it would be a way to
Yeah.
put it. And I see people, like, they buy into these things, like whether it's real estate, whether it's cryptocurrency, whether it's some MLM program or whatever, that they get bought into, going thinking, oh, I'm going to make this money, and not thinking, is this even something I would do? Is this something I would
Mm.
enjoy? I know, like, real estate, for instance, like, it's like you have to talk with other people. So if you want to make money this way, you're going to have to talk to other people. That's part of the process. So if you're an
Yes.
introvert and don't like talking to people,
You're not going to be
this is
doing.
not the money making thing for you. And they don't seem to take that into consideration because they think, oh, I just need to follow this process and this is how it
Mm,
works. So do you run into, and I'm going to tell you, and of course, there are a lot of people out there. I won't mention any names, but they're like used car salesmen. These people would sell their mother for $1, and and so they're like, sell your mother for $1, and then you take that dollar and you sell your grandmother, and you put that money together. It's like, and you could be a millionaire too. It's like, so there's those kind of hucksters
gift
out
of the
there.
gab.
Yeah, yeah, and people will follow them, and I go, but these people have no morals, they have no integrity, they have no honor, and you're willing to follow them because you think you're going to become rich like them. And I go,
Mm,
would you really be happy with who you are if you were? Like, do you
mm.
really think money's going to buy you integrity or honor? And
Oh
so,
no.
so
Mm.
when you come across people like that, what are your thoughts on these things?
Gosh, yeah, we probably could talk for hours on this one. Yeah, money's a funny thing. Big, I mean, if we look back in terms of money, how much money it defines your success, and that's a lot of the beliefs around that. Which then it says, well, I need money because I can buy my Lamborghini or my Ferrari, I can buy my 8 bedroom house. That shows success to them. But actually, then, they're probably not happy for one reason, for one. Because just because you've got the biggest house on the street doesn't mean that one, you're actually really successful, or two, that you're happy, because a lot of times we don't know what's happening behind closed doors. Now, of course, to do certain things, you do need money to invest. So you have to invest something. But I think it's really important to also, and I've learned this the hard way, is to follow your gut. Really think about what your gut's telling you, because you have to have some insight and do some research to not just aimlessly follow somebody. And the reason why I believe, and I'm speaking for myself, is sometimes you follow that, you may be in a place where you're not feeling secure enough. You've lost your self worth or your self value. Um, and what they're saying suddenly inspires you, hits the point where, oh my God, I've resonated with, that's what I want. And without actually really thinking about it, is it what I want? Is it going to get me what I want? Do I have the skills and ability and the knowledge to do this? You just dive in. And that's where it kind of goes wrong.
Right.
Um, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I think also
Um,
too, I mean, and I want your thoughts on this. I think what has happened is that we have been fed this whole idea of what success is supposed to look like.
yeah,
It's sort of like with men and women. You see these women magazines of what the female body's supposed to look like. We see men's magazines of what men's bodies look like, and we try to live up to that expectation. Going, even if I can
absolutely.
look that way, would I be happy looking that way? Like, I know what it would take for me to get an 8 pack. I don't want an 8 pack because I don't want to starve that way. I just don't. It's like an 8 pack isn't that important to me. And if the people in my life are the kind of people who go, well, we don't like you unless you have an 8 pack. I don't want you in my life,
Yeah,
sort of thing.
absolutely.
And I think if we looked at it like that and said, hey, look, if how much money I have in my bank account will determine whether you like me or not. I don't
Mm.
I don't want you in there. So do you think that as well? Do you think society's put this unrealistic?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And building on what you're saying, I mean, I could totally agree with you there. And I find that what, you often hear, and they say, in order to be successful, have money, surround yourself by successful people. Now, there's pros and cons to that
Right.
as well. Yes, these successful people, have been through challenges thing, but so often you don't hear the struggles and challenges they've been through. You just see their success. Okay, and you could learn a lot from that. Absolutely, I'm not saying you can't, and you can grow from that, but also it could end up being detrimental because you then think you might be going against your authenticity, being
Right.
authentic
Right.
of who you really are, and trying to be somebody you're not in order to fit in to get that success. Then it goes, well, actually, that's not the true purpose of life that I want. Kind of makes sense?
Yeah. And I think it's important, like, if you do want to,
Balance.
if you do want to have people in your life who are successful, which, I think we all do, they have to match you as far as,
Yeah.
Bernie Madoff is not someone who I would want to follow because he was, yes, he was very successful, very rich until this whole game that he was playing came crashing down and he went to prison. It's like because he wasn't an honorable man. He didn't have integrity. He didn't, he was a crook. So you have to be
Mm,
careful that sometimes you see that, like you said, you see the success, but you don't see what it took to get there, and you don't know how they got there. And so,
yeah.
if you find that these people don't align with your own, your own characteristics as far as having integrity and
Morals and
honor and things of those nature, then
mm,
I would say, I don't care how successful they are monetarily. I wouldn't.
mm.
I have no desire not just not follow them. I don't have a desire to have them
Yeah.
in my life.
And you know what? I think that's a really good point as well. To have your own integrity and ethos and all of that, being authentic, is you really have to understand the type of person you want to be, and with that sometimes comes sacrifice. If you're ready to sacrifice certain things, so if you decide that that's where I want to be and who I want to be with, close family and friends may not fit in,
Right.
and that can sometimes cause pressure and conflict. But again, it's a decision that you have to be good with, whether you're willing to sacrifice friends and family and they have to accept you as you are, or actually think about, well, actually, I don't want to be that because I have more, um, what's the word, worth and value to be with my family and friends.
Right.
I mean, there's often talk about, if you don't accept me as I am, well, tough.
Right.
Um,
And that's the thing. It's like, when you're looking at it, you have to look at it from the big picture and say, at the end of it all, does it matter more to me how much money I have in my bank account,
mm,
or do the memories that I have with my family, with my kids, does that matter more to me? And and if you say money, then maybe you shouldn't have a family. It's like, or
well,
there's and the thing is
difficult.
make sure that whatever you're doing that's right for you, but also the people in your life. So
Yeah.
I know excuse me, I know a guy who has, he has a very successful business, but it's a family business. So they do
Mm,
it together, and it's like this great, it's a lot of fun because everybody's included, you know,
yeah.
which is so much more fun than the husband who has to go off to his job and work, 10, 12 hours a night, or a
Hmm.
day, and not get home till the kids are asleep. And, and it's like, yeah, you're trying to build a future for them, but at what
Mm.
cost? Don't you think your kids would rather see you than you make that extra little bit of money that, and what would really be important to them? So,
That's really interesting you say that, having family business or not having that family business and having work. Because even, doing things as family is lovely, but also that has its challenges as well.
oh yeah.
Oh gosh, that's another ball game, how to then separate, you know, when you're working and then when
Right.
you're at home as well.
Yeah, that's very true, especially with spouses, because they tend sometimes not to realize that, that work is
Mm.
one place, home is another, and they tend to,
Yeah.
yeah, to blend in there sometimes. So Yeah, you have
And I
to.
guess with anything, it's about boundaries and
Right,
expectations. And I think sometimes, with everything we've been talking about, boundaries are very important, expectations. And I think it's important not to have expectations of others because we can't really rely on people. That's my thought,
right,
and I'm coming to sort of, and all this is such deep, deep learning and growth. I mean, I've got a long, long way. We all have. And if we think about the Buddhists and the monks, they've been
right.
doing it for, that's all they do. But I believe when I expect something from somebody and they don't deliver, I'm disappointed. So the best expectation to have is my own expectations of me.
Okay, so let's dive into this a little bit. Let's have a discussion
Yeah, you're a bit like, hmm.
because Gary Vaynerchuk, I don't know if you know who he is. He's a very successful marketing guy, and he's got a huge following now, and I like him a lot. The one thing he says is what you said: don't have expectations on anyone, and then you won't be disappointed. And I was like, I don't agree with that because I want to be disappointed if you don't live up to the expectations I have. I want to live up to the expectations you have of me because it keeps us in check. If I know,
Hmm.
Zena says, okay, we have a podcast to do, you know, at 11 o'clock, and I don't show up, I want you to be disappointed in me because I should have showed up. I should have been there for you. And if I wasn't, you have a right to go, Kurt, uh, what's up? It's like, I'm not very happy with you. And I would go, I understand. Because I
Yeah.
think, otherwise, what's the sense in having relationships where you can count on one another if you don't have those expectations? And so I'll stop for a second, let you go from there.
Yeah,
Counterpoint.
I hear what you're saying. I think it depends on the situation, and what the expectations are about. Um, so, taking your example, I think if we've done work on ourselves, because yeah, we can. Okay, so you have expectations on someone, but you have to be able to know how to control your anger, your emotions on that. So, I mean, I could ring you up and go, write you a really horrible email. Like, oh, Kurt, you were supposed to turn up. Why didn't you turn up? I made time for you and blah, 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 blah. You can't respect my time, and I could go off like that. Or I could sit back and just go, okay, something's come up. Maybe something happened there. Yes, it would have been nice, and I would then communicate it in a completely different way. And again, it comes down to NLP, the language we use.
Right. And I
Um,
and I agree with that. Yeah, I mean,
um,
you can react different. Like you are in charge of how you react, but I think it's okay to be disappointed. I don't. But as you said, not be mad or upset, but go because, like you said, something may have come up, and I may have been in the hospital and didn't have a chance to message you or something. And so, yes, how you handle, I completely agree. But I think it's okay to be disappointed.
yeah,
Um,
I agree with you. Yeah, I think a little bit of disappointment, as long as you don't sit in that
Right.
disappointment.
Like, yeah, and you don't hold it against them. Once you find out, oh,
Yeah,
this is what happened, you go, okay, well, and you let it go. Now, I may keep it in the back of my head, so if you ever do that to me again, I go, oh, it's a pattern
yeah.
here, or the
There's a
beginning
pattern, and
of
then
a
you
pattern.
make those decisions. Absolutely.
Right,
I mean, I had, and here's another example. So I had an sort of expectation of, oh, I was going to join this company for well-being, and they're the ones that approached me. They headhunted me, and they said we'll do X, Y, and Z, and I was going to. Then all of a sudden, I wasn't hearing from them. So then I emailed it was, and then I'd suddenly get an email said, no, we've not received anything, but my emails were going out. I said, have
right,
you checked junk box? All this kind of stuff, and we do. And I was getting really frustrated because it was a job that I wanted to be part of this company because I had a lot to offer. And I was expecting them, my expectation of them is they need to be more professional. Why
right,
are they not? They're this company. Da, 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 da. And actually, you know what? It was damaging me and my mental well being in that process. And I thought, you know what? If they're not getting in touch with me, it is, I had to step back and go, yes, I'm disappointed, but actually, I might have dodged a bullet.
Right, exactly. And that's how I would have looked at it. It's like they're
Yeah.
then they're not what they're putting themselves out there as.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they wouldn't behave in this manner.
Yeah.
I talk about in when I talked about my course about loving yourself, I talk about when you're looking for a mate, what you should do first thing, and that is that you set up the dynamics of that, of what you're looking for. Be honest, don't worry about putting your best foot forward like everyone does. They want you to always see them in the best light. I go, that
Yes.
causes so much trouble down the road because you weren't being honest. Be
Yeah.
honest and say, these are the qualities I look for, these are the things that I want to do, and these are the things that I'm going to do. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that way the person goes, okay, I'm on board, or I'm sorry, I have a different path I want to go down. But at least you know the person you're with, when you find that person, is the person that is going to work best with you, as far as as far as you getting along and seeing things, pretty much the same as far as your future goes. And I think
Mm.
that's important. So, because then you have a lot less of the disappointments with the expectations that you have as as partners. So
That's interesting. Um, I'm not, I'm not great with relationships. I've tried everything. Well, not everything. I can't say I've tried everything, but I've tried many things. Yeah, relationships is a tough one because sometimes some people say, "Don't lay out all your cards on the table. Don't tell them what
yeah,
exactly you're looking for."
and
It,
that's
I don't
wrong.
know. Does it make a difference how what age you are, where you are in your life? Um,
I don't think so. I think it comes down to this, and this is what what's the word, what I share with people. Okay, from my experience, from my knowledge in years of doing this, is that it's all about honesty. You first have to be honest with yourself, because if you're not honest with yourself, you can't be honest with anyone else. And
no,
so
absolutely.
if you're acting as if you're someone that you're not, and you're not, but you're going to put it out there anyway, and you kid yourself and say, oh well, I want to be this or whatever, it's not going to work. So I believe, I don't care if you're 25 or 55 or 105. If you, when it comes down to talking about things, be honest with them. And I'm one of those people. I go, look, you will never ever guess, like, what did he want? Because I will tell you several times over, so you can't say, oh, I forgot. So
Yeah.
and so and
Yeah.
so I make sure that that like, for instance, one of the things go I say, because I date younger, I go, I'm not going to be anyone's sugar daddy. I want that made clear. I have no intentions of raising another child. I raised two. I don't have intentions of raising anymore.
Raising
I
anymore.
I want somebody who wants to work with me, to work to having a great relationship together. We're a team.
Mm,
That's what I'm looking for. If you're not looking to be part of a team, then
and you're
I'm
not
not
really.
the guy. And I
Not
would
for
rather them tell me then than to be 2 or 3 years into the relationship and thinking,
absolutely.
oh, I thought you were going to take care of me. Because I'd be like, I don't know where you got that from. Because
Oh yeah, I was clear at the beginning.
exactly. And so
It's about wearing that mask. You're right.
yeah, and I think that's what, so I don't think it's the age. I think it just comes down to being honest and true with yourself, and then being honest to the person that's sitting
Mm,
across from you, and just tell them what you really feel. And you know what? Most of them might walk away, but that one that stays, that's the gem.
that's the one. But you know what? On that, I think the reason behind um, many people not doing that, and this goes for many aspects in life, is the fear of rejection.
Yes. And
And
so,
if you're not ready for it, then that's why people aren't open and honest about it.
this
That
is where
fear
my
of rejection is massive.
I'm sorry, this is where my course comes in handy, because the course is about loving yourself. And here's what happens when you learn to love yourself first. And that starts again with honesty. When you
Mm,
love yourself, you don't need anyone else's okay. You don't need their
Yes.
adoration, you don't need their validation, you don't care if you're rejected, because the rejection isn't based on you, it's based on them and what they'd want, so it's not something to take personally. And when you love yourself, you don't take it personally,
Yeah.
and that's makes all the difference in the world. So that's where my thing is to
Yeah.
share with people is like, the first thing you have to do is learn to love yourself before you go out and try to find a mate. Don't do that. Wait, hold off. But everyone think,
Yeah.
here's the thing. I'm sure you've dealt with this, and tell me if you have. How many times have you had a client where you tell them the things they need to do, and then they go back and do them the old way and think they're going to get different results? And
Yeah.
that's what happens when I tell people you have to love yourself first. Don't worry about getting a mate. A mate is not going to make you whole.
Yes.
That's what they like, oh, I
Absolutely.
need someone to make me whole. No.
Yeah, to fill in the last piece of their puzzle.
Right, and I go, "No, the only thing that's gonna make you whole is you."
Mm.
And so they'll listen, and it goes in this ear and out this ear, and then they go back looking for someone to make them whole. And so and then they're like, "Why did I end up in a bad relationship again?"
Yeah.
But I'm
And do you know
sure
what?
you
That
deal with
comes
that.
back to rebounds, doesn't it?
Yep,
People who come out of one relationship, jump into another, and then into another. They've not given them time to re ground themselves and find that love for themselves.
right, and they don't, because here's because, again, it's a simple solution, but it's not easy. It's hard for us to look in and see the darkness, the ugliness that's in us, and
Face it.
yeah, and so they don't want to see that. So we close it off, ignore it, and pretend it's not there. And
Mm.
so and when we do that, of course, we can't ever address it, and we can't actually get rid of it because we won't admit that it's there to begin with. And so
Absolutely.
there's a whole process there. But I'm sure in your line of work, you must have um been disappointed and frustrated where you tell people, okay, these are the things that you need to do, and then watch them go back and do the same old things that they used to.
Yeah, yeah, and that I think that goes all back to what we were saying right at the beginning that when I said that people have to be ready to make that change,
Right.
and if they're not, um, it's really funny in my head while you were talking about relationships and talking about being honest and say it how it is. Um, I had a flashback of an incident with a friend of mine, actually, no names, and I don't know if I should be saying this on air, but she would wear. She was absolutely beautiful and great personality and everything, and she would wear chicken fillets. Do you know what chicken fillets are?
Uh-uh.
Oh, so we call them chicken fillets. So those things that you put in the bras to pump up your boobs.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking about then. Yes, chicken
Yeah.
fillet. Okay.
So we call them chicken fillets because they feel like rubbery fillet. Anyway, you're gonna could go later and cook a chicken fillet and go, yeah, I'm not having chicken fillet anymore.
Exactly.
I'm gonna put you off chicken. Anyway, and
Chicken
she
fillet, here
had
you
this.
go.
Yeah. Oh, I've got a chicken today. Oh dear. um, so she would wear chicken fillets, and I would say, "Why are you wearing them?" Oh, because it makes me feel better, and the guys like it. And I was like, "Do all guys like it?" She goes, "Well, no." And I said, "So you're wearing it because you want to feel more confident? That's great." But I said, you do what you do to feel confident. I said, "But what happens if a guy is attracted to that, and you're feeling confident?" And then you get to stage 2 or 3, whatever that might be for you, where the chicken fillets come off. Think about how you're going to feel if there was a reaction or he was disappointed because you haven't been the true you
Right.
and been open and honest. So it's about wearing that mask again. It's about that honesty.
And
Um,
it
I
really
think,
it really is. And here's
and
the thing,
image is massive.
and tell me how you feel about this. But in my opinion, the thing that people are most attracted to is confidence. When you can, like, I don't care. I've dated people where I go, they're not my type, but it's because of their confidence. I go, that is
Mm,
so much more attractive than the physical type that I
yeah.
have in my head,
Mm,
because there's just something about confidence that I think everybody gravitates towards. And
yeah.
in fact, I know they do, and I tell people, like, because again, I date younger, and they're like, how do you always get younger? And I go, because I know who I am, and I'm confident in who I am, and I know that
Mm,
I'm bringing something to the table more
absolutely.
than probably what they're bringing to the table. And I don't mean money, but I mean wisdom and knowledge that comes with being alive much longer than they have. And I said, but
Mm,
it's just that I know who I am, and I go, and I think it's the confidence. I don't think it's this mug. I think it's,
yeah.
I'm sure it's that, and I you see this all the time. I even remember I was a bouncer at a biker bar many, many years ago, and you would see these bearded fat guys, just, and they would have the best looking women on their farm, but it was because they knew who they were. It didn't
Yeah, they were
matter.
true and
Right.
honest. Yeah.
They were being true to who they were, and that was attractive to these women, and so I'll stick by that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a valid point. When we look at things, and we could probably talk about this for quite some time. Image is massive because I've gone through that in terms of my career as a ex-professional figure skater at the time. Had I known what I know now, maybe things would have been slightly different, and my life would have slightly, the way I handled challenges or and obstacles would have been different. But there's always that image that, and again, it's those expectations of others that you're living up to, and if you don't do that, then they're not going to like you, or you're not going to get the part. But what I tell my clients now is, I say, if they're say yes, okay, relationship, yes, you've got to be attracted to them, but sometimes physical attraction may be needed, but look beyond that. I said, look for something that's not exactly that physical, because the physical aspect can change as we get older, as we know that.
Right.
you know
It's
there's
going to.
there's very few people that can maintain that for such a long time, and if they do, their physical outlook is changing, and you've got to be okay with that, and think, okay, well, they're not as slim, or they're not as six pack, they don't have a six pack like they used to, but you know what, they make me smile every time he walks into the room, or I giggle every time he says a word, or every time he looks at me, I melt. Those kind of things.
Right.
And I think we need to look more deeper into what relationships are than
Do you
just the
do you
outside.
find it a little bit more difficult as a successful woman, to find that particular person who will, um, what's the word I'm looking for, that could connect to you where they don't feel intimidated?
Yeah, that's interesting that you brought that up, because I've often had this conversation with a couple of close friends, and I say, well, I don't understand, I'm open, I'm honest, and I'll say how it is. And then they say they're intimidated by you, possibly. And I was like, how am I intimidating them? They said, because you're a woman, you're independent,
Right.
and, all these things. And I was like, but isn't that a good thing? But then I don't know. And yeah, I'm still trying to figure out that.
So here's the thing. Men men
What's
don't
your
look
thought?
men don't look for the same thing that women look for in a relationship. And
Mm,
so even successful men, because they don't need you to be successful, that's not what they're looking for. However, one of the issues, or one of the challenges that you would have, is that successful men think they know it all and they have it all together. They still haven't gone through the process of learning to love themselves, and thereby
mm,
finding someone that they really should be able to match up with, because they're looking only for the physical. They're not,
mm,
they're, and so because someone should be able to look at you. A successful man should be able to look at you, who's gone through the process of loving himself, and go, "That's somebody who's worth being with." And unfortunately, I don't think that when you're that successful, you think you need to learn anything. So that's the challenge you might run into.
That's interesting. Yeah, there's possibilities there. Lots to explore.
Lots to explore. Yeah, it's love is it's an amazing thing. It's very it's very strange, like as to how we come about falling into love with people. So
Mm. Yes, it is.
you never know what's going to work.
Yeah, and the thing is, about relationships as well. I think, you can't. It's not going to come to you. You need to go out and put yourself out there. That's one of the things. And of course, I know the pandemic has made it a lot more tougher. But here's a question for you, actually. Do you feel that people give up on relationships too quickly? Like they almost think it's, I've bought this jacket. Oh, okay, it's okay. Oh, you know what? I don't like it anymore. I'm going to return it. The label's still on it.
Yes,
I'm going to return it.
absolutely. We live in a throwaway society, and we throw everything away that doesn't, if it doesn't work, throw it away. It's like they don't even, we look at things. You look back, 40, 50 years ago, you had shoe repairs. You had people who darned socks. I mean, these were things like you didn't go buy a new pair of socks. You took them, and they darned them for you, and you took your socks back.
Yeah.
You didn't go buy a new pair of shoes. They fixed the sole of your shoes, and then you wore the same shoes again. And that's how it used to be. But now it's cheaper. You don't even think about fixing your microwave, because
Yeah.
it's cheaper to buy a new one than it is to get it fixed.
Get it
Same way with
fixed.
watches, everything. And so we don't, when something isn't working, we don't think, oh, we should work on fixing this. We think, oh, I'm done. Where's the next one? And
Yeah.
I think that it's unfortunate because, you know as we spoke about earlier, going through these difficult times build character. It
Mhm.
builds that relationship so that later on down the road, the two of you can make it through anything. But if you can't make it through the simplest things because you're willing to throw it away so quickly, you're
So
never
quickly,
you're
yeah.
never going to have that relationship with anybody to where you
Yeah.
can handle things when they get bigger.
Yeah, it's almost like the humans have just become materialistic things, Like you said, the microwave, oh, I can't just move on. Same with relationships. You're absolutely right. People not
Yeah.
willing to make it work.
And
Um,
it's unfortunate because I've said this, and I'll probably get crap for it. I don't care, but I said Americans are like a virus. Seriously, we just need people look up to America because we're the number one consumer driven country in the world. I mean, everything is about America because we're going,
Mhm.
the United States, because we're going to buy everything, and we become so consumer driven that other countries have wanted to be like us, and they start behaving like us,
Mm.
and it's not a good thing.
No.
It's a bad thing. I mean, the things that, the destruction that we're causing across the globe because of our behavior and our actions, it shouldn't be lauded at
Shouldn't be
all.
like that. I think that's very much sort of reflecting here as well in the UK to some extent as well. But you know, I just think with everything, whether it's products, it's people, it's relationships, it's with our own. We live in a society where we're constantly making excuses or we're blaming.
Right.
We live in a society of blame and excuses. And you can make excuses till the cows come home, but let's just stop and take take ownership of your mistakes and rather than blame and think, hold your hand up and say, yeah, it was me, or actually I'm not making this excuse because there's alternatives
Yes.
like solutions.
Absolutely. Excuses, blames, and victims. That's what we have.
Yes.
Victims who blame and have excuses for everything. So, and that's unfortunate. So I'm glad that there are people like you to help others to no longer be victims, no longer use excuses, and no longer blame others,
And yourself as well.
because it's
People
important.
like us.
Yes, exactly. It's important because otherwise we're doomed. So, so you're, so it's great to have someone like you out there helping people. In fact, you also, and I didn't mention this earlier, you're the author of a book called Begin Each Day with Positive Affirmations and Empowering Questions. And I love this because one of the things that people need to understand is that when you start this journey, it's all about consistency and doing these
Mm.
things over and over. It's just like working out. I tell them, it's like you can't walk into the gym one time, do some bicep curls and some bench presses and think you're going to look like Arnold
You got
Schwarzenegger. Right? It doesn't happen. And I said the same thing happens here. You're not going to change who you are overnight. And
Mm.
if and you're by just going and seeing Zeenat one time and going, oh, I can do everything now. No,
Yeah, let me just wave my magic
right,
wand.
exactly. Exactly. I go, the things that she teaches you, you're going to have to continue to do over and over. And it's all about consistency and having that commitment to yourself to stay on top of doing this. And I
Yeah.
like this book where it's like because positive affirmations to me are the beginning of it all. You start your day off talking to yourself properly instead of beating yourself up and calling yourself an idiot or saying, "Oh, I'm so stupid," or and talk and doing all the negative talk. Start it off with positive affirmations and do that
Absolutely.
every day.
And I think it goes back to what you were talking about, that self-love.
It does. I'm telling you, I'm writing a book. It's called All the World's Problems Solved in One Book. And that's
I can't wait to read it. Can't wait to read it. I want a signed copy.
okay, deal. But yeah, um so you have your book. You tell me, so tell everybody what else that you have going on out there, that where they can reach you.
So my book's available on Amazon, and just to the affirmations and the questions in this book are ones that I've used along my journey up until obviously when it was published. I'm hoping to bring out another one with a little bit more excitement in there and things like that. But other things I've got coming out will be an anxiety self-help book that I'm hoping to bring out soon. I'm looking to probably launch it sort of February, March time. People can connect with me all over social media. I'm so easy to find. Zeenatnoorani.com is my website. So https / all of that little
Right, right.
symbly things. Zeenatnoorani.com. Instagram, Noorani Zeenat. Facebook is Zeenat Noorani, and then I think you've got to put Vida de la Mariposa Coaching, which means life of a butterfly, because my company is all about the transformation, and the importance behind that is we know butterflies are beautiful. They transform from from lovely little caterpillars to this amazing winged animal. It causes amazing ripple effects because you flutter those wings. There's a lot of things behind it, and that a butterfly, actually, many have just one life and they make the most of their life for that time that they're
Right.
living, for that short time. So live your life to the maximum, however long you've got, no matter what's going on. Yeah, so sorry, I went off track there. So you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Yeah, and YouTube as well.
Okay, I'll and for everybody who's listening in your car, don't worry about writing this down as I tell you. I will have all the links listed below so you can just click on them when you're safely parked. So,
Yes, please do.
well, Zena, it was such a pleasure talking with you, and I'm grateful for the things that you do, and I don't buy a lot of books by my guests just because it would cost me a fortune, but because everyone I have on has written a book except me. So, but I really do. I really like the title of your book, and I could see how that would be something that I would love to have. to read every morning when I wake up. So
Oh,
I'm
thank
gonna,
you.
I'm gonna go on Amazon after this and purchase one of your books. So
Thank you so much.
and
Yeah, it was one of my first little ones came out. I thought, I need a little box. So I just literally typed away and put it out there.
if you ever come to
Um,
Florida, you're gonna have to come by and sign it for me. So
I will, absolutely. Do you know what? Thank you so much, Kurt. It has been delightful. And thank you for inviting me along. It's great to be part of the Power Project.
well, thank you. It was my pleasure, and I wish you all the best of luck and over there in
Likewise.
UK across the pond. So
And send some heat over to us.
okay. Well, folks, that's our show for today. Thank you for joining us as always. And so until next time, take care, be safe, and love yourself so you can love others. Bye.